Hello folks, I'm here today with the Isuzu D-Max V-Cross. This one's the 1.9 litre diesel with the automatic gearbox. We've also got all the lovely four-wheel drive goodness in here, and this is very much a no-nonsense work truck, although Isuzu have bolted on loads of aftermarket accessories or options on this one, so there's a little bit more nonsense than there might be on some. One of those accessories, by the way, is this big LED light bar, and you turn that thing on and night becomes day. It's amazing. We've got 0 to 62 time of 12.7 seconds, 112 mile an hour top speed, 235 mil of ground clearance. There's also lots of underbody protection, so you can do some proper off-roading in this. This one, as I said, has got the four-wheel drive system. You can lock the diffs. It's got different modes for different terrains. Pretty much anything you throw at it, it's going to be able to deal with. The load bed is more or less 1.5 metres by 1.5 metres, and we'll have a look at that in a sec. And you can tow 3.5 tonnes as brake towing capacity, 3.5 tonnes with this, so it's not lacking on that side of things. Fuel economy, WLTP is 31 to 33 mpg, which possibly because of the four-wheel drive and the automatic, but I'll talk about this in the driving segment. I'm getting a lot better than that in the real world, which is quite nice. 5 years warranty, 125,000 miles, and you get roadside assistance with that. Now, pricing for the manual starts at 38,000-ish plus VAT. For the automatic, you're looking at 41 to 45 plus VAT, depending on spec and everything. But as always, I would suggest you go and have a look at leasing.com using the QR code that's popping up on your screen to see if leasing one might be a better idea for you. So here's what it's all about really. We've got this nice big, more or less 1.5 metres by 1.5 metres load bed. You've got a payload of just over a tonne in here. You can see this one's been carpeted, which is not very workmanlike, is it? But yeah, it all feels very plush. There's also a bit of sound insulation under here. It is only velcroed in, so if you are going to do some mucky work, you can pull that out, of course. We've also got a light bar in here and one other little toy. These are, of course, optional extras. But we've got the electric load cover. How cool does that look? We've also got these very substantial, rugged and manly bars on the back of it, which also look extremely cool and appeal to the man-child in me. And if I put my adult head on instead of my childish one for a second, you've also got the practicality of a nice big step there, so it's easy to get things in and out without pulling the tailgate down, and a fairly robust looking tow bar. So up front, it's got a utilitarian feel, but it's also got some very nice touches. So like a nice chunky padded armrest in the middle here. We do have leather seats in here, some nice squishy stuff up here. We've got little cubbies and things. It's not a cabin that hasn't been thought about. You know, some degree of design has gone into it, although it's, you know, it's not the flashiest in its class. In fact, you know, many of its rivals have a more impressive interior, I guess, but this feels like a work truck first. And I have to say that in 2025, most people getting one of these now are getting it as a work truck rather than a tax loophole, because that's the way of the world. We've got a really good driver information display. It's nothing flash at all. You know, it looks like an old design, in fact, but it's got all the information you want, exactly where you want it. And there's a lot to be said for that. We've got a fairly low res infotainment screen, but again, it's completely fine. You've got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Can't speak for the Android Auto, but the Apple CarPlay is wireless. There's also a wireless charging pad down here, but that doesn't seem to like my phone very much. We've got the automatic gearbox in this one. You've got your various sort of four-wheel drive and hill descent and off-road and all that kind of stuff. All those controls are down here, and we've got a couple of heated seat buttons, which is a nice feature to have in something like this. You've got a cubby up here on the top of the dash, and of course a glove box, and we've got a 12-volt socket and 2 USB-Cs up here, so connectivity is pretty good. We've also got proper aircon controls and a proper volume control, so I'm a big fan of that. Steering wheel's nice. It's not too thin, not too thick. You've got your volume controls and stuff here. You've got cruise control and that kind of stuff over here. And all the switch gear feels made for function rather than form. You know, none of it feels particularly special under the hand, but it feels like it will still work in 20 years when this thing's got 200,000 miles on it. And that's sort of the story of quite a lot of this cabin, really. It feels like it's made to last, even though it's not all that luxurious in places. The seat comfort, I have to say, is brilliant. This is a nicer seat than I've had in a lot of cars lately. And yeah, it's a nice place to be. The one thing I cannot forgive them for, however, is there's some piano black plastic around this gear shifter here, and that's going to look hideous in a few years. And in fact, piano black looks hideous on day one, in my personal opinion, but of course your mileage may vary on that front. Look guys, in a perfect world, we'd have a slightly nicer resolution infotainment display, but I'm nitpicking here really. This is a work vehicle first and foremost, and as work vehicles go, I'd rather spend my time in this than in a hell of a lot of them. The heavens have opened, folks, so apologies if you can hear the rain. In the back here, it's not like incredibly spacious, but I've certainly been in pickups, dual cab pickups that are a bit more cramped than this. I've got about that much leg room with the driver's seat in my normal position. I am only like 5'9.5" or something, and I've got about that much headroom. So I think you'd be fine in the back here at 6 foot. You could also get 3 adults across the back here. There is a tiny bit of a hump on the floor, but there's a decent amount of space underneath the seats to put your feet. So it's got that going for it. And we've also got a really nice, big, squishy central armrest. In terms of creature comforts, in the little center console here, we've got a couple of vents, and there is a USB-C socket, and it's behind a little flappy cover, which obviously protects it from any dirt or anything like that. And on the back of the passenger seat, you've also got a hook for, I don't know, hanging coats, jackets, whatever. And you've got storage pockets in the back of the seats. Again, seat comfort is really good. The material feels nice. It feels nice on your back. You've obviously got the headrest as well. So I think most people are going to find this really quite comfortable. And I mean, at my size, I could do a very long journey in here and not feel cramped at all. But if you're a bit taller, it might be a little bit of a squash, or indeed if you've got a really tall driver. There's nothing exceptionally clever going on, it just works. Today's video is sponsored by leasing.com,
which is the leasing comparison site, and we don't just offer lease deals on cars, we offer them on vans and motorbikes too. Isn't that right, Jim?
It is. Leasing.com is the only comparison site that looks at the whole market. That means not just deals from brokers, but also from the funders directly, even from manufacturers directly, and from dealerships. That should mean there are more deals available, and hopefully you're able to get access to more vehicles and lower prices. So whether you're an old pro when it comes to car leasing, or perhaps you always PCP your cars normally, or perhaps you even pay cash, have a look in the link in the video description or scan this QR code and see if car leasing actually could save you a few quid. Thanks to leasing.com for sponsoring today's video. When you get behind the wheel, to be honest, it doesn't disappoint and it doesn't offer too many surprises. It feels like it's absolutely full of torque and grunt, yet, you know, it's not going off the line like an F1 car. It doesn't feel sluggish off the line either though, it feels fine. And to be honest, like well suited to the kind of vehicle it is. You will notice the engine sounds gruff, and you do get quite a bit of that engine noise coming through to the cabin. I'm not sure how well the mic's picking it up, but of course it is a working vehicle, and it doesn't hide the fact, and I don't have a massive problem with that. You know, just don't get into this after coming from an SUV thinking you're going to be travelling in silence. MPG wise, it's been pretty impressive. I've clocked this over 186 miles and it's done 37.9 MPG, which I don't think is too shabby at all. Don't forget, this has got the four-wheel drive option, and although I'm in two-wheel drive, and I have been for all of those 186 miles, I've also got the automatic gearbox in this one, so you might expect both of those things to have a bit of a negative effect on MPG, but it's not been too bad at all. In terms of the automatic gearbox, no problems with that. It works really well. I have flicked into the four-wheel drive modes and stuff, but You know, it's one thing I can't do, unfortunately, in this review is really put that kind of off-road stuff to the test, simply because I don't have the opportunity to do it, and nor can I sort of tow anything particularly heavy with it. So unfortunately, folks, my review is going to be a bit lacking on those fronts. But you only have to look at the numbers to know that the car's going to be more than capable. I mean, towing 3.5 tons, low capacity of over a ton, I don't think we've got anything to worry about, have we? The D-Max generally is a vehicle that's built itself a reputation for getting the job done, for being one that will actually perform off-road in a pretty serious way, and still being a pleasant enough thing to live with on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't give you a car-like driving experience because we're effectively in a big heavy thing on stilts. So you do get body roll in the corners. You know, you're not going to take this down the B roads and throw it around and try and get the tail out on it, are you? But what it does give you is something that's really nice and easy to drive and really easy to live with. And it's just as happy, really, going to B&Q or going to Tesco's as it is driving over a farmer's field. So from a driving perspective, I've got really nothing negative to say about this car other than it could be a wee bit more refined. So big positives for the D-Max. So I guess the first one would be that excellent towing capacity. 3.5 tons is not to be sniffed at, and you've got over a ton payload. So you can put more than a bag of shopping in the back and it's not going to struggle. Rugged off-road credentials I've written down here. You know, it's got the diff lock, it's got rough terrain modes, etc. So you should be covered there. It's also got that underbody protection, good ground clearance, all that kind of stuff is very much in its favour. It's got plenty of standard kit. You've got leather, heated seats, 9-inch touchscreen, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all the driver assistance features. Got good warranty and an excellent reputation for reliability. You know, if you are comparing this to something like the Ford Ranger, you have to think about that 2 litre in there with its wet belts, etc. Not having the best reputation for reliability at times, and that would be definitely a plus for going for this over something like the Ranger. And then the pricing is pretty competitive when you look at the rivals as well. Downsides, I guess, are it's a little bit slower than like a Hilux or a Ranger, the equivalent Hilux or Ranger. Higher CO2 and running costs if you look at that MPG figure, but as I've suggested in this video, my MPG in the real world's been much better than that WLTP figure. It has had a long run though, so that might be part of it. Interior's still a bit more utilitarian than you would get in something like the Ranger or the Nissan Navara. But let's not forget that this should be a work vehicle. It's meant to be a work vehicle. So maybe you want something that's more utilitarian and less plush. I don't know. And then I guess the refinement, it's not as refined as perhaps some of the rivals, but again, it's a work vehicle. So what do you think, folks? Would you go for the reliability and dependability and sort of workhorse type nature that you get with something like a D-Max? Or are you going to be thrilled by perhaps a little bit more refinement and a few more niceties around infotainment and things like that, as you might get on something like a Ranger? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to go and check out leasing.com. Strongly suggest it. These are not cheap vehicles, and sometimes leasing is the way forward, so go and check it out. Massive thanks for watching the video. Please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Huge thanks to all my channel members for your continued support. I really do appreciate it.